As usual, in the final part of each module, we will finally analyze all the specific demand fulfillment processes and how they are supported by SAP ERP. This is, which are the steps of the fulfillment process. So, as we discussed in the previous part, the process begins with pre-sales activities and concludes with the receipt of the payment from from the customer. Of course, pre-sales activities are optional and are designed to identify and develop customer relationship, while instead, very often the process starts with the sales order processing when the customer have confirmed the organization that he wants to purchase something from them. And after the company creates the sales order, it then prepares the shipment for sending the goods or the services to the supplier, to the customer, and then prepare all that is needed to bill the customer and so receive the final payment. Of course, as you can see here, a variety of documents are created during the fulfillment process. In particular, we have financial accounting documents, managerial accounting documents, material documents, and transaction documents. So this is a very important phase also because it affects different area of the organization and also both financial and economic performance. For the case that we will see, especially in the simulation, this is the scenario. So keep in mind this scenario for the GBI case. We consider a specific customer, which is RMB, located in Denver, and he asks GBI if it can deliver 40 silver deluxe touring bikes and 100 t-shirts by some specific end date, so by end of May and May the 10th. Once the sales is in place, RMB requests information on pricing, shipping cost, and discount, and GBI creates a quotation and then start the sale process in order to satisfy this order from RMB. Let's focus a bit on what we already see and in the theoretical part, so the pre-sales activity. Pre-sales activity are often triggered by a communication from the customer, like an inquiry or request for quotation, aim the sales force to collect information about the customer and making their company able to make the customer the best offer as they can in order then to transform this inquiry and quotation in a practical sales order. So the trigger of this process of pre-sales activity is the customer who puts a request to the company, to the supplier. The company, put together organizational data, master data, and user input, and create a quotation for the customer. And then, the customer review this quotation, and in case it is satisfied, we can go on with the sales order and so on. In particular, I want to draw the attention of what we call scheduling agreements. Because scheduling agreements are on one side, quotation is a binding agreements made by sellers. So when a quotation is in place, the supplier commits to pay to satisfy customer request upon the conditions that are stated in the quotation. On the contrary, scheduling and or also called outline agreements are binding agreements made by the customer to purchase specific quantities or values of material. So on one side, in the quotation, the supplier need to respect the condition because the customer accept the offer upon the information included in the quotation. But on the other side, the customer can submit a scheduling agreement by committing itself to buy some quantities at some prices, and this is, I mean, a warranty, a guarantee from the supplier that the customer is effectively committing in the agreement. This is another output of the pre-sales activity. So we have a commitment from the supplier to a quotation, and the commitment from the customer once he has accepted the offer from the scheduling agreement. Again, we didn't see that through SAP ERP, but usually, I mean, Salesforce use customer relationship management system in order to support their pre-sales activity. I mean, SAP has its own customer relationship management module, but honestly, this is not a real customer relationship management application. I mean, it just gives some support to Salesforce to collect pre-sales data and make some analysis. While instead, what you see here in the slide is, I mean, a real or more advanced customer relationship management application. So it is an add-on application which can, I mean, be integrated with the ERP system, but which makes the Salesforce available and enable Salesforce to make some analysis and to aggregate and disaggregate information in order to make their selling effort to the customer as much effective as possible. For example, in this case, in this screenshot, we see that all the activities of the salesperson and people in the dashboard are summarized. So opportunity created by month, opportunity created by stage, and then here in the bottom part, in the lower part, we can see also the specific sales visit or sales effort that has been made by the different person. Here you see the name of the customer, here you see the type of product or service that you are offering, the probability that this will become an effective sale, and so on. This is a real customer relationship management system. So from here you can collect a lot of information and you can then plan how to keep on with visit on the same customer or investment in marketing efforts on different type of customer and so on. SAP ERP doesn't really have this kind of stuff. So the CRM module of SAP ERP is less advanced than what you see in the slide. In order to, I mean, realize, stepping back to I mean, the basic fulfillment process in SAP ERP, in order to realize a good quotation, you need a lot of data. So a lot of data need to be provided and need to be precise and aligned. First of all, I mean, you can see that they are mostly organizational and master data. And particularly of particular importance are data concerning the customer, the materials, and the pricing, because you need to know which are the customer characteristics and the eventual condition that, I mean, are linked to this customer. The pricing condition of the material you are selling have, of course, the quantity that the material description, the quantity you want to sell. Then you have also, I mean, other type of data like the user input that consists of customer number, material number, quantities, and date. And the system uses these inputs to obtain the necessary organizational data, like sales area from the various master data in the system. So user input are useful to then link to the other data categories. Of course, I mean, again, like in every process, if some of this data is missing, it can be a problem then to realize a fair quotation, because I mean, there can be a missing of information that can lead to an incomplete document, which is then to be revised manually in order to before to be sent to the customer. However, I mean, as we already said, before we made a quotation, we can make a quotation. I mean, we should receive what we call, from a fulfillment perspective, a customer inquiry. So an inquiry is a customer's request to a company for information or quotation in respect to their product or services without obligation to purchase. I mean, I go smoothly on this because it is exactly what we saw in the procurement process, referring to the request of quotation. The request for quotation made by a buying company is like, is seen as a customer inquiry seen from the supplier perspective. And this is, an example of how an inquiry looks like. You see that? So this is a document which has some information here and from which company comes from, and here some specification of the sales needs of the customer, so like the terms of delivery, the terms of payment, what we need, the quantity, the expected value, and so on. So I ask for an inquiry and the supplier need to respond to this inquiry, or just matching my need, or just saying how it's able to satisfy that according to his characteristics. Then, in order to answer to a customer inquiry, we need to realize the quotation. Of course, as we already said, the quotation is a binding agreement to sell the customer specific product under some state and clear delivery and pricing condition. I don't know how much familiar you are with this stuff, but a quotation usually has a time limit. So as pricing condition or delivery condition can change, I send the customer my quotation and I say this quotation is valid until this date. After that, we need to revise that. So there is an up-to-date and an expiring date of the quotation, up to which the quotation will remain stable. Otherwise, we need to rediscuss. Of course, the quotation can be created with or without the reference to existing documents. Generally speaking, the customer inquiry should exist as far as it can be more or less formal. So I can just visit the customer and he can just ask me for something to be something informally that I can satisfy, or he can send me a formal document asking for I need this, and I answer back. When the quotation is created without the reference, of course, all of the necessary data must be provided when the quotation is created, meaning that from a system perspective, if there is something which is linked to the quotation, the system is able to collect this from already document existing in the system. While instead, if there is no reference, when I create the quotation, I need to input manually all the data to which the quotation refers from. And of course, the quotation can be linked to customer inquiry, to previous quotation, to previous sales order, or to previous customer agreements we have already in place. Then, once the quotation is in place, and once the customer has accept the order, which is the main goal of the pre-sales activity, this means that the customer has accepted my quotation and has issued to my company a purchase order, and we have seen which is the process to issue a purchase order. So, once a purchase order has been issued by my customer, it means that he wants effectively to purchase something from my organization. So I receive the purchase order, and in order to respond to this purchase order, I need to create a sales order. A sales order contains all the information that are needed to process a customer request, the delivery schedule, the shipping point, the route determination, the availability of the product check, the transfer of requirements to the materials department, the purchasing department. So to satisfy an order of product, I need maybe to purchase some materials. So these are transferred to the procurement department in order to match this customer request. The pricing, the credit limit check, and so on. So I need a lot of data to create a sales order, and the activities of this phase are essentially creation of the sales order, performs the customer credit check, and we will analyze this in detail, and track then the contract. The outcomes of this phase is the creation of the sales order, the update of existing contract, the availability check. So if some inventory changes need to be an update need to be made at this level, determination of the delivery schedule, and the requirement transfer to the other part of the company. Again, in order to do a sales order as well as the quotation, we need another amount of data which is very relevant. So in order to create a sales order, but it was evident by what we discussed before, as we need to determine the pricing, the quantity, the availability check, the shipment, the delivery date, and so on. A lot of data need to be present in your system and need to be aligned in order to be to realize a sales order which is complete and not required to be managed or modified manually through the system, because this requires a workload by salespeople which can focus their attention on other more value-adding activities. So as you can see here, in particular the sales order includes also data related to shipping, billing, partner function, existing contracts with customers, and so on. So it's just a matter of pointing out that is very essential document is realized from a different and heterogeneous source of information and data, like all the documents in SAP ERP. Again, like a quotation, a sales order can be created using more or less already existing reference documents. So what we saw for the quotation, it's valid also for the sales order. The sales order can be created with reference to a customer requirement, a quotation, an agreement, or a previously created sales order. In particular, it's not said that one quotation is essentially related to one sales order. More quotation, if accepted by the customer, can design a unique sales order to be issued to satisfy a customer request. Or one quotation, if for example refers to very heterogeneous product, but the customer was asking for this product in the same document, can then be satisfied by two different sales orders. So this gives you also the idea of the complexity of this type of process. You have a different quotation coming from different customer, who needs to be then transformed in sales order, and according to case, you need to understand if you can bundle some quotation or separate the quotation, or bundle sales order or separate sales order. Putting in your system a complexity in terms of data managed, which is very relevant. Here is the structure of a sales order. As all the documents in SAP ERP, you have essentially the two sections. So you have the header, and then you have the item lines. The document header in the sales order includes all the data that are valid for the entire sales order, and so you see here. Here you see which is the sold to party, which is the ship to party, the purchase order number, which is to which this sales order is linked, which is the net value, which is the sold to party name, and so on, the purchase order date, and stuff like this. And then you have also the different tabs. So you see here you have sales, item overview, item detail, order in party, procurement, shipping, and eventual reason for rejection. These are all documents items that are included and are need to be present in order to describe better the characteristic of this sales order. Then you can see in the bottom part of the documents you have what we call the line items. I mean, each document needs to include one or more line items, which means the material and quantity and cost of what you have to purchase to the customer. So what is included? I mean, the items that are included in the sales order. In this case, for example, deluxe touring bike and professional touring bike. Then you have also schedule lines, which refers to each item lines if you already have delivery quantity and dates already scheduled. So you see here delivery date and delivery quantity. So for each line items, you can then go and see if you already have some delivery date promised and order quantity promised, so that you can schedule your activity according to this data. Please note that whenever you create a sales order, you always have to do an availability check. The availability check means that before promising whatever to a customer, or issuing a sales order, you need to understand if you have the material available in your inventory or to be purchased to your supplier in order to satisfy your customer request. And according to the rules that you have defined, so according that if you have 100% of material, 50%, 25%, then you can propose to your customer some methods of delivery, like one-time delivery, so delivery all the product in just one time because you have all the materials, or complete delivery, so I will deliver to you all the product once I have received all the materials from the supplier, because I don't have all the raw materials, all the sub-assembly and so on to satisfy your order today. Or delayed proposal, because you are telling your customer that you don't have materials and you don't know when they arrived, so when they arrive you will start producing and so on. So you have to first to perform your availability check in order to tell your customer when you will be able to satisfy its order according to the status of your inventories. Of course, there is no, when you do the availability check and the availability documents, the output of this availability document, so I have X% of the material request by the customer, and what happens next? This what happens next is created by you, so it's something that you need to put in the system in order to understand how you want to satisfy your customer order according to the condition of your inventory. Linked to that, once you have done the availability check, you are also able to promise or to discuss with your customer a delivery date for the order or for each line item. So you have checked the availability, you know the rules according to this availability, and the system will then determine a delivery timeline. And this delivery timeline will be then become what we call availability to promise date for the client. Generally speaking, the algorithm or approach that the system uses for determining the delivery deadline in the system, through the system, is the backward scheduling. So you have done the availability check, you know how many materials you have, you know that you have to issue some purchase order to your supplier in order to satisfy that. The system will determine this date, so the delivery date to the customer, backward scheduling according to the rules that you have defined. So if you start from the request request delivery date, and then you know that you have a transit time of 2 days for good issue, then you have a loading time of 1 day, then you have a transport scheduling time of 1 day, then you have a pick and pack time of 2 days, and then maybe you have some wait for materials and so on, and according to this backward scheduling, you understand which is the lead time of the process that you need in order to arrive to this date, and you understand if you are able to match the date that the customer is requesting, or if you need to communicate that some delay need to be expected, and those, rediscussing eventual aspect of this. Maybe it will take 5 days more, but I will give you some discount if you are able to wait some more days, and you show all the activities that you need to do with the timing and why you are not able to match this delivery date. Then now all is planned. You have a quotation, the customer has accepted the quotation, you have issued the sales order, you have checked availability, you have discussed with the customer the delivery date. You are now ready to put in place the physical flow of the process. In particular, when you have created a sales order and all has been freezed in the sales order, and you have checked availability and transfer needs to your procurement department. Now you have to organize the shipping activities. So when the orders become due for delivery, so you have freeze your delivery date, the sales order need to be transferred in shipping step. Shipping consists of several tasks that are necessary to prepare and send shipment. So, in particular, after a sales order, a delivery document needs to be created which authorizes the delivery of orders that are ready to be shipped. So the necessary materials are picked from storage and placed in staging area where they can be packed properly, and when these tasks are completed to warehouse management process, the additional steps in that process are triggered. And when you have shipped the orders, a good issue is recorded in the system and then linked to accounting and financial activities. So in order to do that, you need for sure all the data, organizational master, transaction and user that you have collected in the previous steps. You need to create the delivery, again picking, packing, transfer requirement and post and good issue, and the output is of course the creation and the satisfaction of the delivery documents, the update of all the documents that you have created in the previous phases, and of course as shipping is a physical activity, so it gives a rise to cost and operation by people and by materials and so on. Of course, you need to touch some financial and management accounting aspects that then of course have impact on several documents. Again, in order to create a delivery document, I don't spend too much time of this, but of course, to create a delivery document, you need a lot of source of data. In particular, of different from the previous one, we can see that from the material master we need some technical information on the material, because if warehouses or storage point are present, we need to know which type of material needs to be delivered, when and why, and so we know which is the proper way to manage this. Then we need to know the shipping data requested by the customer, which is the delivery plant and the shipping point, and so on. Again, we need a lot of amount of data to be put, which are of course automatically put and recorded by the delivery document, but which is, if they are not present in the system, then people need to include them manually once the document has been created. Again, this is a structure of the delivery document in SAP ERP. You have an header when you have general data like the outbound delivery, the ship to party and document date, and then you have line items, so different tab when you can, see the characteristic of the different line item that need to be delivered. For example, you have the item number, the material, the quantity, the weight, and so on in the item overview tab. You see here for example, but the structure is the same of any documents that we already seen in SAP ERP, and now you should be very familiar with that. Same as, you see that there is a continuity of structure of this process. Again, the delivery documents authorize organization of delivery, and delivery documents is created after sales order. And of course, in order to, according to the characteristics of the sales order, you can organize the deliveries in different ways. So you can, for example, bundle a request of a sales order of different sales orders in one deliveries. If, for example, the sales order has the same ship to address, shipping point, and due date, or in case a sales order has different shipping point needed or delivery date needed, we need to necessary to split the sales order in multiple deliveries. So according to the information provided in the sales order, I have an impact on how delivery can be more or less optimized and distributed on different geographical areas. Then the delivery document, of course, serves to logistic people, and we will see that when we deal with warehouse and logistic activities for picking. Delivery documents say you need to deliver this stuff in that day to this address. Of course, from stepping from this to the effective delivery, of course, we need to pick up the product and so on. And in order to do that, we need the delivery document. So the delivery document is converted in a transfer order into the warehouse management, and the transfer order is then used to complete the physical movement of the materials needed for the shipment. Again, according to the characteristics of the delivery documents, 2 or more delivery documents can be converted in one transfer requirement document if they have similar characteristics, and if it makes sense that logistic people manage this picking, packaging, and so on jointly, or if there are different characteristics, delivery document can be split in more documents and then managed independently by production people. Then we have, just a brief overview about the fact that we are dealing with packaging activities, which are what do you mean by packaging, and which are the packaging option that logistic people can deal with once they receive the transfer document, because after picking have been completed, of course, I have all the products that need to be delivered to my final customer. Of course, the material are paid in staging area in order to be then shipped and transferred, and in this staging area they are packed appropriately. It's not always happen, but very often it happens. So they are packed appropriately, and materials to pack unit can be variable, and different packing option can be used. For example, as a basic choice, materials are first packed using a variety of cartons. Can be packed using a variety of cartons, like the one depicted in this figure. Then these cartons can be consolidated in what we call a pallet. So can be grouped from a geometrical perspective and can be put on pallet. You see, this is a pallet. Then, once several pallets are completed, they can be put in order to wait for the shipment in containers. So you start with the cartons, you put them in pallet, and are then stored in containers. In the example of GBI ships each bike in individual box and consolidating 20 boxes into one carton. So one of these contains 20 bikes. These cartons are then put into a pallet and then through the use of forklift and other type of machinery, they are different pallets are loaded into a shipping container. So I don't want to make this too technical, but just to give you an idea that this is the physical impact of the transfer document. So packing in cartons, putting cartons in pallet, and then putting pallet in storage area when materials are there waiting to be delivered. The final task in shipping is to pass the goods issue in the ERP system. The goods issue indicate that the shipment has left the facility. So when materials is stored in container, it will arrive a day in which the shipment will leave the facility and in order to transfer the material to the customer. When this happens, on the ERP system, you need to pass the good issues, so the fact that the material has left the facility. Of course, this has a physical impact, but also a financial impact. And now we are going to briefly analyze which is the financial impact of this action. Because as you can see, there is an impact of the shipping into financial activities. Specifically, the inventory accounts of the material shipped are credited and the cost of goods sold account is debited. In particular, first of all, let's review the condition. So the cost of bikes is $1,400 per bike, 30 bikes, and the cost of t-shirt is $15 per t-shirt and 100 t-shirts. So when you ship, so something is leaving our facilities. So because I have sold something, I'm selling something to the customer. So I'm using inventory finished goods of bike, and this is the value of the inventory, and I'm using inventory trading goods or t-shirt, and this is the value of t-shirt. So I'm on my asset side, I'm reducing my inventory of this quantity because this is the value of the inventory I'm sending to the customer. And if you remember the accounting principle, this means that I'm experiencing this inventory, the cost of this inventory is immediately put in my cost of goods sold because I'm selling this item and this is their cost. This is their financial cost, the economic cost. So I'm debiting the cost of goods sold of an equal amount. Then the customer received the goods. And it's time to make him payment. So make him paying what you have received. So the purpose of the billing step is to create a variety of documents such as invoices for product or services, credit and debit memos, in order to make the customer paying what he has received. The billing step is also used to cancel previously created documents, and billing can be based either on deliveries that have been shipped to customer or on orders that have not been yet delivered. So, I don't want to go too much in detail on this, but of course you have to create the billing documents and then you cancel the billing documents if you have some previous open documents on that. And the impact of this phase is mainly financial. So the main aspect of this are mainly financials. Again, data to create the billing documents are a lot. In particular, of course, you need to match your billing documents with the sales order that then is created and the delivery document. So assuming that the sales order and the delivery document are aligned, of course the billing document needs to refer to the delivery documents which were used for the shipment and the sales order which was used in response to the customer purchase order. The key task in the billing step is to generate a billing document, so an invoice for materials or services. Again, the billing documents are created upon a delivery document, and again, a delivery document can be bundled, more delivery document can be bundled in one billing document, or in case the customer needs has the need of some specific accounting, as some specific accounting needs, we can separate billing and invoices even if the delivery was unique. I just want to spend some time saying that I mean, there are other billing documents that are created by this process, like credit and debit memos. A credit memo is a refund that the company issue if the customer returns the materials or if the initial invoice overcharged the customer. While instead the company used a debit memo when the customer was uncharged in the original invoice, and a debit memo increases the amount owned by by the customer. So the main document created is the invoice, but you can also have a credit or debit document in case something the invoice is not correct, or there are some return issue from from the customer. This is the structure of a billing document. Again, I won't spend too much time on this because you will see that in the simulation, but again, the structure is the same of every document of SAP ERP. So you have an header with general information are provided, like the item category, materials created by, so the person who created this and the date, and then you have line items, so different tabs where you have items detail, when you can have item number, material, quantity, invoice, and value in the different tabs, of the document. Again, billing has an impact on accounting activities because when you bill your customer, or your credit or you're debiting with some other documents your customer, you are committing the customer to pay something. So this needs to have an impact to your financial statement, also because before you see that with the shipment we just charge the cost of goods sold of materials and services that we are providing to my customer. Of course, when billing is involved, we are now telling our accounting department that this shipment and this cost of goods had been debited because we are generating revenues. This is what happens. The shipping phase creates this effect. So modification of the asset, inventory, finished goods and trading goods, and debiting of cost of goods sold. And of course, when the billing step is completed, the first things is that the sales account, the sales revenue account is updated of the same amount. Of course, please remember that the same amount of quantity. These are costs, okay, and these are revenues, okay. So you are, increasing revenue as you want profitability of the same amounts of units that you have sold, evaluated by the price of selling this type of items. Then revenue account is credited for the account of the customer sale, and then you have to make some other movement in the accounts receivable of your financial statement. However, because accounts receivable is a reconciliation account, as you remember from the account section, the amount of the invoice cannot be posted directly to the accounts receivable of the general ledger, but you need to post it in the customer subledger account in the reconciliation account, and by doing this, an open item is created in the customer account via debit entry, which automatically creates an entry in the accounts receivable account. So you just post temporarily an accounts receivable in in the customer reconciliation account here, and an open item is created in the general ledger account receivable in order to then reconcile this aspect. Then finally, the last step of this process is the payment. The payment is, receiving the customer payment from the customer, of course. Again, this has mainly a financial impact. So this is something that is up to the financial department, and what is generated from here is a payment document. The payment document, of course, needs to retain and needs to include all the data that refer to the customer master, the organizational data, so to which organization, to which client and company code the payment refers to, and of course the dates and the payment amount which was expected by the company. This is the financial impact of the payment. This is the financial impact of the payment. So when a customer payment is recorded, relevant general ledger accounts are updated and corresponding financial documents created. So remember that in the example, we have sent a payment for the first invoice in the amount of $86,700, and this is how the receipt of the payment, the reception of the payment, impact the general ledger account. So first of all, the bank account is debited of this amount because he received the payment, while the customer account is credited by the amount of the payment. Of course, this transaction clears the open item in the customer's account that was created during the billing step. So, because remember, as the customer account is a subledger account, the corresponding reconciliation account receivable, is also automatically credited.